Hey there.
How's it going? Hold on one second. I'm just trying to get my Audacity. It's frozen on me for some reason.
Hi,
Damn it.
Ted.
Hello.
How are you? Oh, that's a very cool background you've got there.
One sec. One
As I
sec.
told Len Tuesday, so it's the safest place to be is right now during the pandemic is outer space. Right?
Outdoor space, exactly.
All right. Outdoor in space. Dr. Ted, great to see you again. Thank you.
Great to
You're
see
back
you
in
again.
space. Yeah, I apologize. It just been literally like it's been back to back to back to back. So even if I'm 30 seconds behind, my whole day gets behind. So thank you so much for doing this with us. I just want to go over. I don't know, John. Did you talk to Dr. Ted about?
We haven't
logistics?
talked anything yet about. So if you want to do that, feel
Yeah.
free.
So basically, I'll do the intro, and John and I will have a brief comedic period of John getting the sound effect right or wrong. So we'll laugh about that a little bit, probably. But we'll introduce you to the best of my ability, and you can kind of give an overview of yourself. We'll a free-form conversation. Towards the very end, I ask 3 questions, basically, like simple, or maybe it's really complicated questions, and then you can tell people where to find you, and then you're free to disconnect and go, and then John and I will continue on. Does that work?
It works.
Great.
All right.
Hold on. Now I'm the one who's trying to. I just want to get. Oh, I do want to load up this one sound here.
Of course. That's what I was saying. We're
know.
gonna have some interesting sound effect stuff coming.
We are. We always do. Okay. So I am ready to start. Usually I will count Len off 3, 2, 1, and then he'll say hello and we'll be ready to go. So
Yep.
How are you guys feeling? Good?
Feel great.
All right, I'm gonna turn off my phone.
I'm not in space like Dr.
I
Ted.
know. I feel like I should be in space today. I don't know what's wrong.
Maybe I am in space. It's mentally I'm in space. We'll talk about that.
Well, as long as you're not spaced out, just
exactly. It'll be a fun psychedelic discussion too, because I'm super curious about some of that stuff.
Perfect. Because I wanted to put CECD in the context of health organization.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I think in terms of my experience with educating the public on how the cannabis space is being conflated or confused with the psychedelic space.
Excellent.
And a nice way for, I think, us as people responsible for educating the public to actually make delineations on so that we cut down through the confusion of people.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's exactly it. So let's say that for the show, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
You're free to roll.
Perfect.
All right. So we will say 3, 2, 1. Len, you are on.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of Everything is Personal.
Hey.
As always, my co-host, the wonderful Mr. John Small.
Oh, that's always an exciting introduction. Thanks, Len. Thanks for having me. I am delighted to be here, and I'm very excited to meet our guest, Dr. Ted.
Yes, Dr. Ted Achacoso. Did I pronounce that correctly? Was I close?
Yes.
All right. I did something right.
It's as it's spelled, right? Americans are such lazy enunciators. They're so afraid to pronounce each syllable of my name.
Achacoso.
Achacoso.
Yes.
Where is that? Where are you from originally, or where is that name from originally?
That's actually my grandparents are Spanish.
Oh, Spanish. Okay.
Yeah. And my and Chinese, and someone along the way, someone humped the help, so I'm Philippine and brown.
So you have to take a DNA test to find out where the ancestry and all that stuff comes from, right?
I have, and I haven't really revealed this in any podcast show before. Right. I guess it's time to reveal it here.
Let's do it. The big reveal.
The big reveal is that I have actually majority Native American genes. So I had to ask my mother while she was still alive. I said, "Mother,
What
who'd you
happened?
fuck? Who'd you fuck?" but she didn't answer me. So
Something's up with that. But you know what you can do now? You can open up a casino, I think. I think that now you make some money
I'm
that
always
way.
listen, man. I'm always mistaken. In especially in Canada, I'm being asked for my card because it's a shit. It's a tax-free card, right? It's like, I
That's
should
funny.
just use my genes.
Can so now I think, and by the way, I don't know anything about this, so I can be like kind of talking on my ass, but I think you can also have a special cannabis license if you're some Native American percentage of. So you can get a different license for cultivation and everything else that's outside of whatever the state is given. So now you can open up a casino and grow weed. Thank you, John. Perfect timing on that.
Yeah, that's a
So
good.
I'm gonna try to give an intro, but there is so much information on you, and it'll probably take an hour of just giving an introduction. So I know you have the clinical health practice, the health optimization medicine, transcriptions, the neuroscience, the patents, the AI stuff, all the stuff that you've done. I mean, it's so amazing, but I don't think I can even do it justice. Maybe you can kind of give a really quick background overview for our audience.
Sure. I have 2 minutes of that. Just the academic stuff.
Mhm.
My undergraduate is in biology. I graduated college at 18. At 22, I was a doctor of medicine. 25, I held faculty appointments in pharmacology and toxicology, in neurology, and in neuroradiology. And I used to
Just
say,
like me. Just sounds like my degree. I graduated
yes,
graduated at 18 from college.
But
You said you
I
graduated
think
from college at 18? Is that when you graduate? What year did you graduate from college?
I was 18 years old.
Wow. Okay. I'm
Yeah.
sorry to cut you off, but I'm just, it was just the similarities between us were so much that I had to call that
yeah,
out.
of course.
Keep
Mine
going.
too.
Keep telling us
Yeah.
your credentials.
Yeah. So I said, I knew pharmacology, toxicology. So I tell people I know how to mix my poisons.
Hmm.
And I was a interventional neuroradiologist. So I used to poke brains for a living.
Hmm.
Um, and I actually at 28, I became a member faculty of medical informatics. I was trained by the guy who started the whole field of medical informatics globally. And my research there was on, of all things, consciousness and artificial intelligence. I started consulting, becoming the science and technology consultant for some major investment funds at 30. And at 35, I started my own company, which provided the first commercial wireless groupware application, right? And then at 40, I said I have had enough of the world for a while. I would like to just stare on my monitors. And I didn't know anything about money. So I studied money and how money went around the world. And I traded currencies using artificial intelligence models that had an evolutionary structure to them, or evolutionary perspective to them. And then I retrained and a friend of mine who I was trained, the guy who trained me in finance essentially was the guy who started the whole idea of socially responsible investing. He started the Calvert Group and all of that. And he came to me 5 years later and said, "Ted, what you're doing is a zero sum game. No one's getting better at what you're doing." So I went to Europe and I became board certified in um, anti-aging medicine and nutritional medicine. And then shortly after that, I started what you mentioned, Len, now, which is the clinical practice of health optimization medicine and practice.
Right.
And that came about actually in several ways, because everything is like disease oriented, right? When you go to a
Mhm.
doctor, it's all about repairing you for something. You go there and you're repaired for something. And I noticed that, there was no place where you could go and have yourself maintained. Your car is even luckier because every 3,000 miles you get a beep beep, in for maintenance. But for humans, we have no such thing. And I wondered why that was. And when I looked at it, I saw that the difficulty there was in the technology, right? But then I already saw that the technology was available for us to do, instead of diagnosis and treatment of disease, we can do detection and correction of imbalances. So the first question I said is like, how can we detect, right? What science can we use? And I was lucky that metabolomics was already then mature. It was 40 years old when I started this whole field. Excuse me. And when I saw that you could now, in medical biochemistry, we used to just memorize, here's your Krebs cycle, and that's it, right? But now you could actually measure the vitamins, minerals, and everything else, the levels. And so my analogy of it is like, it's just like a car, illness medicine, where I came from really is disease oriented, meaning they will do diagnosis and repair of things, right? And then and I don't blame them for being that oriented, right? Because we didn't have the technology then to do the detection and correction of imbalances, and that came later. And but so it's very hard to make a shift, right, away from disease and into health. But I said, if we are going to make a dent in healthcare at all, we should move the needle away from disease and into health, right?
Right.
So so when I look at that, everything was like basic science. And I remember, one of the first modules that I did, because I started a nonprofit organization to teach practitioners on how to do health optimization, is one of the first modules that I did, of course, aside from clinical metabolomics, was the mitochondria. And I was trying to get, continuing medical education credits for it. And the crediting organization said, no. I said, you cannot get any credits for that because that's basic science. It's as if basic science never advanced, right?
Right.
And it's sort of like, this very well, because, for example, the endocannabinoid system was just one of the great discoveries of the past 30 years, right?
Right.
And I told Len during a prior conversation that one of the funniest things that I ever encountered was lecturing to a group of high-power physicians a couple of years ago, and they all thought that marijuana was just being smoked. It is just like, that kind of mentality exists within the illness medicine community because they're not exposed to this new maintenance modes. And the way to think about it is, suddenly we have a way to say that our tire pressure is getting low, right? Or your windshield washer fluid is getting low and needs replacement. Kind of like saying, hey, your alpha lipoic acid is getting low, your vitamin B1 is actually low, etc. Before, we used to fight, is vitamin E good for you? Is this hormone good for you and that hormone good for you? No, you can measure those now, right? And you could put them in a balanced state. So what do you mean by optimal? Optimal is, hey, when you were between 21 and 30 years old, right? And I base that on actually hormonal values. But by age 30, your testosterone actually starts creeping downwards. So
not mine. Mine was going.
It's
still going.
I don't know who you're talking to.
I don't know what you're talking about.
See, that's one of the symptoms of a low testosterone.
Okay. Okay, you're delusional, right? I'm getting delusional.
Kidding. So and one of the things that bothered me is that we don't have, although the World Health Organization has a definition of health, it's not clinically actionable, right? So I devised actually clinical definition of health. Health is an optimal physiologic state, right? It's a state of physiology or a function that that is characterized by ABC, right? A is very simple. A is the absence of disease. Okay, that's illness medicine.
Right.
So we'll give them that. Plus B, the balance between the anabolic processes, or the processes that make systems grow, and the catabolic processes, those that destroy, right?
Right.
According to C, the life cycle of the organism. You know, when a child is young, it's bent towards anabolism. A child's growing, right? When you're old,
Right.
it's bent towards catabolism. And you can fractalize that. It actually goes, for example, in inside our bodies. You could see that there is our body actually balances those systems all the time. You know, for growth or destruction. And that's also the mechanism by which we balance things. So that's, for me, is I don't like to use the term wellness, because I'm reminded of a wellness masseur, right?
Right.
Or a wellness masseuse. It's being co-opted by everyone else. So let's have an actually clinically actionable definition of health, not some wishy-washy stuff, you know, that's good to look at in paper, but actually is very difficult to implement, you know,
and measure.
in the clinic. And my point of view, really, Len, is, hey, I have a patient or a client in front of me. I call them clients if they're not sick, right?
Right.
A client in front of me. Well, what the fuck do I do, right?
Mhm.
And that's the thing that's with me. It's the same thing that when, for example, you're looking at, say, there's a client in front of you asking about cannabis, right? What the
Mhm.
fuck do you do, right? How, you know, how are you going to go about these
Mhm.
things, you know, and for what indications are you actually going to do it? So that's health, right? For
Right.
optimization, as I touched on earlier, you try to put on the values between 21 and 30 years old, and or uh, when the evolutionarily derived values. For example, vitamin D is
Right.
evolutionarily derived, right? Because it's higher in the Maasai tribes. It's like 50 nanograms, right? So, and you see very low incidences of diabetes and cancers and so on. And
Right.
then medicine, it actually means what do you, or practice is actually what do you give, right? To
Yep.
maintain this balance. And your first line, my first line is always what is being used by the body, right? What's being
Mhm.
used by the body to do this. So if you lack alpha lipoic acid, you give it. If you lack the B vitamins, you give them. You lack testosterone, you give it, you know, and so on. But you have to make sure that you're doing it in a network. Our
Right.
big mistake is giving, for example, just testosterone alone without checking all the other hormones. You know, all
Right.
the hormones are in the network. You touch one, everything else moves. Same thing with your vitamins and minerals. You touch one of them, it moves. And a simple example of that, for example, if in the wintertime when people are sucking on so much zinc, right?
Mhm.
They are actually peeing out their copper, you
Yep.
know, so they
Yeah.
get into some sort of a copper imbalance. So, you know, our bodies are wonderfully dynamically balanced that way. and
Yeah.
and so that's the first line in medicine. And then the second one will be the phytoceuticals, like your phytocannabinoids, for
Right.
example, for as an anti-inflammation, or your fungiceuticals. Well,
Mhm.
we hope that we're able to give magic mushrooms soon, right?
Well, that's a good
In some dose.
segue, Dr. Ted. So I have a question for you. This is for our
Yeah.
audience because we really want to understand. So as a shaman yourself, and if I'm incorrect about this, let me know. But maybe you